Story this morning. I said when I was a little boy, 5, 6, 7 years old, my grandfather had an old green station wagon, the old station wagons. We called it the bomb. And you could smell that carbon monoxide just pouring out of it was just pouring. And I always, they always put me in the back. I was a little boy. I got put in the back. And I said, I don't want to get in this car, Dad. Get in the back. Here's your pillow, And so no seat belts. We go down the road. That thing was full of all the family. We go to the Dutchman. And from Vermilion, it was several hours to get there. And yes, sir, Brother Don.
Back during the Depression, particularly, they couldn't pay preachers, so farmers were given various things. Well, this one preacher was given a cook that had a few chickens in it. They put it in the trunk. The trunk lid was open, but when we got home, they were all dead.
They were all dead. Yeah, they're all dead. So, but in any case, well, we really enjoyed it. It brought back some great memories, and certainly, I love the state of Ohio. I would consider myself a Buckeye. I wasn't born here in Ohio, but all my family was born here. I was born in Carbondale, Illinois, and my dad worked for the Southern Illinois University for a few years. His students made more money than he did, so he decided to go work for the airlines like they did. So, and that's how we came to leave and ended up in San Antonio, Texas. So, really have enjoyed the week with you guys. It's been a special privilege, and looking forward to this lesson tonight. Gentlemen, I'm going to treat you like men tonight. It's just us. And if our men do not exhibit strength in this time in our history, if the men in the Church of Christ are unwilling to stand in the gap and to be counted, if our men are not willing to bear the brunt and to lead, there's no way the Church of Christ in this country is going to make it. The men have got to lead not only their homes, but they got to be leaders in the church. And I'm not just talking about elders. I'm talking about men who are willing to be foot soldiers. The Bible says in Ephesians chapter 6, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and dark places. And our warfare is not an earthly warfare. Our warfare is a spiritual warfare. And I know where I stand tonight. I know who my commander-in-chief is tonight. And brethren, in no uncertain terms, I know what my mission is tonight. And I know what the end result's going to be. I know that in the final days, in the final day, I know God's people will be victorious. But that does not mean that while I'm living in this earth, irregardless of how many more years and how long this earth stands, there is a battle and a war that must be fought for the souls of men and women. And we are on the front lines. You are on the front lines right here in New Concord, Ohio. And the men in the church must rise. The men in the church must take this challenge. And brethren, I realize that we are in a land of muchness and manyness. We've inherited vineyards we didn't plant, houses we didn't build, wells we didn't dig. I mean, in many cases in this nation, we have been given more than we deserve. We have more material possessions than any time in the history of the world. We are surrounded with not only our needs, but our wants. And it's easy to get distracted. It's too easy to become complacent. And so the challenge for the Church of Christ now is that for the men in the Lord's church to rise. Brethren, we can slumber no longer because the spirit of evangelism must be awakened. It was in the late 1930s, and Germany was beginning to assume control over the European theater. In fact, Adolf Hitler's armies, and warnings were being given, but his armies were expanding, his military was growing, and you could see his progress that was being made, and the countries were fearful. And they were looking for one nation to stand up, one nation, one man to stand up and put Hitler in his place. Well, Neville Chamberlain was called upon. And instead of doing what the world leaders wanted him to do, which was to stop Hitler, Neville Chamberlain decided the best way to stop Hitler was to negotiate. And so he went to the Munich Peace Treaty, he went to the Peace Accords, or he went to Hitler, and they worked out this pact where Hitler agreed he wouldn't do X and X, and then Chamberlain agreed to sign over. He said, I'll sign this paper, and you can have this, and we'll do this. And the people in the world, warned Neville Chamberlain, don't do this. He won't keep the agreement. While the paper was still wet, he broke it. Adolf Hitler went on what he called the Blitz. What he would do is he took his army with overwhelming numbers, superiority, went right to the border of France. And he took the nation of France in a record time. Nothing like this had ever been seen before. It was almost a paralysis to every nation around, and they saw what Germany did. And all of a sudden, everybody knew that they're in trouble. The British people started calling for their leaders to rise. Someone's got to rise. Someone's got to lead us out of this, because we're losing our soldiers. We can see Nazi Germany knocking on our door. We fear that the British Empire is going to collapse because we have not addressed Adolf Hitler. We appeased him. We sat at home and we waited. Well, there was one man, his name was Winston Churchill. And he had an opportunity to address the Parliament. The Parliament, the Commons in Britain is their form of government, the parliamentary system. Well, Winston Churchill was allowed to go and speak, and he realized, in fact, he knew that the speech he was going to make in front of the Commons and at the Parliament was going to be a speech that could be historic. In fact, it's considered one of the greatest speeches in the world. And in that speech, he said something that I want to say tonight. He who fails to plan is planning to fail. My fellow countrymen, we have no plan, and we're going to lose this war. After his speech, to a rousing applause, he was voted in and eventually became the Prime Minister of Great Britain. And some historians claim that speech alone, was one of the greatest determining factors in turning the war away from Germany and putting Adolf Hitler on notice that we will not bend. Brethren, there's a war being fought right now in the Church of Christ. There's a war being fought right now in this nation. And if our men do not rise to the occasion, if we do not take the mantle and realize that we cannot appease, we cannot pacify, we cannot just hope somehow if we elect the right president, this is going to change and America is going to be returned to her position of greatness. Listen, brothers, the war is being fought in our pews. We are the soldiers. And God doesn't need an overwhelming army for victory. If there's anything we learn in the Word of God, is that God does not need numbers. God is well able to win victories with the smallest of armies. He doesn't need a giant army. He just needs a few faithful churches out here, a few faithful men who are willing to address the issues. What is the issue? Brother, we've forgotten our mission. We are distracted. We are not focused. In fact, if we were to take what we're doing right now in our churches into Xerox that and place it in our businesses and our companies, they go bankrupt. That's how distracted we are. What I want to do tonight is outline at least some steps that you can take as a church, some things that we can focus on that will make a difference. No more speeches, no more talks. The time for talking has got to come to an end. The time for action must take place. And in every business, my understanding is there's certain language that the employees, that the board, the stockholders, they understand there's certain language. Let me give it to you tonight. In the military, they call it make it operational. That's what they call it. It's an operational plan. We've got the green light. And no more training, no more planning, no more talking. We've got to do something. Make it operational. That's their words. May not be as exciting, but in the IT industry, in the technology industry, they have a word too. It's called make it executable. It's the executable file. All the programming and training and software and uploads and downloads and all the various directions and instructions are fine. But if you don't make the thing executable, it doesn't do anything. Every industry has a word to describe what I'm about to do. Sometimes in the teaching industry, they say we need an actionable plan, something actionable. We need it to be actionable. In other words, sometimes they call it a pipeline. We need a pipeline. Sometimes we need a system. We need something where we can be functional. Well, let me share at least with you in part what that might look like. Number one, we have got to equip our churches with the equipment needed to save souls. While all churches have beautiful buildings, while we are equipped with some of the finest technologies, our kitchens are equipped with stoves and microwaves and ovens and spoons and forks, and don't worry, we have everything we need for our coffee. We got our coffee pots, we got our coffee stirrers, we got our coffee cups, we got our coffee filters, we got our coffee grinds, we got our coffee sweeteners. We've got everything we need to have coffee, and we've got napkins and forks and knives and tablecloths, and we got everything we need to open a soup kitchen. And while our churches are well equipped with scissors and safety scissors, we need those too. We got glue sticks and safety glue sticks, and we've got cardboard and all sorts of things to operate our Bible class department. Where's the equipment to save souls? I'm going to demonstrate what I'm talking about. I walked into a church one day, and I was early, and it was an elder, and I respect elders immensely. My father was an elder, my grandfather an elder. My best friends are elders. And I said, brother, would it be okay if I ask you a question? I want to demonstrate a problem. And he said, well, yeah. He said, Rob, go ahead. I said, I want you to pretend just very briefly that I'm one of your church members. I'm one of your members. And I walk up to you and said, brother, listen, I've got a neighbor right now, and my neighbor is lost. And I've been talking to him, and I want to do a Bible study with my neighbor. Do you have something you can give me so that I can do a Bible study with my neighbor? He had a blank look on his face. He said, well, no, wait a minute. He said, wait. He said, Rob, follow me. I said, great. I said, I'm so glad. So I'm following him, and he starts turning on lights. We're going down this long, dark hallway, and we're popping in lights, We get to the end of the hallway. He said, Rob, they're in here. The door was locked. Don't worry. He had the ring of keys. He brought it out. Have you ever seen it? We brought out the ring of keys. We went through every key. We finally got into the door. We walked in. We turned on the lights. I said, oh. He said, it's in here now, Rob. He said, there it is. And we walked to the back of the classroom, and don't worry, there was a locker, and he had everything he needed. And so he said, Rob, it's in here. It was locked. Don't worry, we had the ring of keys again. And so we went through the keys. We got into the locker. He pulls out, and this is what he did. He pulls out a stack of Back to the Bible. He said, Rob, we knew you were coming. We got prepared. Here they are. I said, brother, I want to make one observation. I said, why are the materials that your brethren need, your members need to conduct Bible studies with the lost, locked in a room and locked in a locker? He said, well, we were afraid someone might get them. Brethren, isn't that the point? Don't we want them to get them? Brethren are not going to engage the lost if they're not equipped. No soldier goes into battle ill-equipped. We equip them. We give them what they need. We make sure they have the finest and the best. What I'm finding in a lot of our churches is our churches do not have the basic things they need to train their membership. I'm not talking about your preacher. I'm talking about your membership, to train their membership, equip their membership, reach out to the community, and to make sure we have the basics needed to do our job. Every company provides their employees with the equipment to do the job. If you need a lift, you got it. If they need a backhoe, you got it. If you need an iPad, a computer, you need an analyzer. If you need special tools, whatever it is you need, we're going to equip you because we want you to do your job. Number one, church, let's get the equipment. Let's make sure our churches equip our members with what they need. That's number one. Number two, put it out there where they can get it. Display it. It shouldn't be in the preacher's office. It shouldn't be locked in a filing cabinet. In fact, I would suggest that you, in your beautiful foyer, get a table and you put a cover over it and you put something like, the new Concord Church of Christ, maybe if you got a church logo and Evangelism, and you stock that table with everything your members need to reach the lost. You put a stack of muscle and shovels out there. You put Back to the Bible out there. You put Doesn't Matter, Believe the Bible, videos, whatever it is, illustrations, contact cards. Whatever it is that is needed to reach the lost, let's supply it. Please don't put it in the library. They're not going to the library. Do you know what the most unused room is in the church building? Wendell Winkler used to say, it's the baptistry. It's probably the most important room in the church building, but the most unused room. You know what the second one is? It's the library. How many of us go into the library? How many of us go in the library and we check out the books and we look? And I'm not against libraries. But what I'm trying to suggest is if you don't put it out there where the members see it, where they have to trip over it to get out of the building, because it's out of sight, out of mind. I'm going to tell you guys a true story. This has happened on multiple occasions. So I roll out of the parking lot. One of the first steps I ask churches to take is to set up an evangelism table and begin to equip your membership. And so this preacher calls me. His name's David. David calls me and said, he said, Rob, man, I've got a problem. I said, what is it, David? He said, man, I set up that table just like I was supposed to, and I put all that material on there. He said, man, Rob, I just walked in the church building. Rob, it's gone. I said, David, that's wonderful. The brethren were hungry. I said, they're taking. He said, oh, Rob, you're so optimistic. He said, no, Rob. He said, no, it's not what happened. He said, Rob, I had a sneaky suspicion. So what I did is I called one of the leaders. And I said, brother, do you know what's happening to all that evangelism material that we're supposed to display in our phone? He said, well, now, David, when we built this $2 million facility, we agreed what was to go in the foyer and what was not to go in the foyer. And now, when our ladies decorated it and put the decor up, we agreed that only certain things go in the foyer. Now, that gaudy-looking table you put out there, we already had 2 ladies complain, and one said, listen, they're not... That was not an approved item. Now, David, we don't want to cause division in the church over evangelism, so we put it all in the coat closet. I said, would you repeat that? I want to make sure that I hear correctly. They put the evangelism material in the coat closet. He said, yes. He said, that way it's out of sight, and it doesn't look so gaudy. It doesn't disrupt the decor. I said, David, I said, tell me more about this. He said, well, Rob, he said, let me tell you what I did. I decided on Sunday night, because that was one of my jobs, was to preach on the evangelism material. So I preached my sermon, and after I was done preaching on all that material and what it does, I went back to the coat closet. I opened the door. I stood by it, encouraging people to kind of walk in and get the material. Rob, do you know how many people walked in to get it? 0. Brethren, if we cannot put evangelism materials in our foyer because it doesn't match the decor, maybe we should sell the church building and go home. This is not home interior. We're not here to practice design. You can get a nice looking tablecloth, put the material out there for your members to get it. You're saying, preacher, you're just using some anecdotal story. I'm sure that was a one-time event. In 1 year, that happened 3 times. In fact, in one case, they put it in the attic. They said, and I said, the what? He said, yeah, we put it in the attic. When we need it, we'll go up there and get it. If we do not put the equipment where the members can get it, I promise you, they're not going to go get it. Number 3, isn't this basic? Number 3, all right, let's train the people how to use it. So when they say, hey, we want you to run the forklift, what are they going to do? They're going to train you how to run the forklift. They're just not going to turn you loose. They're going to say, are you certified? Have you had any training? Do you have any experience on the forklift? And they say, okay, you're going to have to go through this many hours, take these classes, watch these videos, be certified with this certificate. Brethren, let's just be honest as men. Raise your hand tonight if you've ever been to training for work. Raise your hand. Any training at all? Put your hands down. Terry, you and I were talking about how we, growing up in the church and going to schools, and I know you've gone to religious education. I have, and I'm thinking about growing up in the church. And how many local congregations offer specialized? I'm not talking about a sermon. I'm talking about specialized training classes, where they say something like this: we want you and you and you and you and you, and we're gonna take you into a room with your wife, And we'd like to spend some time on Sunday night, and we're going to train you what to do when visitors walk in the door. How many of you have ever been to a class like that? Raise your hand. 2, 3. How many of you have ever been taken to a classroom and put in a room and said, okay, we're going to spend the next 30, 45 minutes and we're going to train you. We're going to train you on how to approach someone who moves into the community. And I can make a list of these things. So one of the things I'm noticing in our churches is that we've got workers. This church is impressive because you've got great attendance, you're workers, you want to say, we need to train our members. All right, so as talented as Terry is, and he's not just a friend, I consider him a kingdom asset. I do, brother. You have energy, you have passion, you love the Lord. It doesn't matter how good he preaches. If you don't provide individual training for your members, they're not going to do it. I grew up in the Church of Christ, and I never had any. None. I went to school of preaching. I had 0. Let me tell you how they trained us to door knock. They put us in a room one morning, Saturday morning. They all gave us some flyers for gospel meeting. I think Brother Gary Colley may have been doing the meeting. Oh, Brother Colley can preach a sermon. I'm telling you, he can preach up a storm. And I'm excited just to hear Brother Colley. In any case, so we're there getting ready. And they said, now, boys, we're going to do some door knocking today. We're going to be out there all day. Make sure you got your water. And make sure, when you go to the door, stand back a little bit, be nice, introduce yourself, and invite them to the gospel meeting. That was our training. How successful do you think we were? I mean, can you imagine if you're working for an insurance company and the first thing you got to do is go door to door? Is that the kind of training they give you? You get a 30-second pep talk and they say, go ahead and go sell your insurance. I know better than that. I want to share real world experience with you guys tonight because we live in a very practical world, and I want this to be something that you can see, that you've experienced. So a couple of years ago, a guy by the name of Jonathan Swatz called me. I didn't know who he was. He said, hey, Rob, I'm your Edward Jones guy. He said, you're the lady that represented you's retired. I'm the new guy. I said, okay. And they do my, the IRA, something like that. I don't know. And he said, I want to come meet you. I said, where you live? He said, Atlanta. I said, man, it's about at least an hour and a half. He said, it's okay. I said, okay. I said, what day you want to come? So he drives all the way out to my house. And I thought to myself, I said, this guy's going to come in my house, and he's skilled. He's trained. This is an arbitrary visit. This guy has a purpose for his visit. And I promise you, every word that comes out of his mouth is not accidental. So I decided what I was going to do is sit back and just listen, right? I want to see if I can notice the pattern of what he does. So I sit back. He walks in my house. We all sit around this table. He looks at my daughter, Hannah. He says, Hannah, how old are you? And he says, well, what do you like to do? And she starts, hey, where'd you go to school? And what kind of hobbies do you enjoy? And he does this for about 20 minutes. And then he goes to my son. He said, how old are you? And Jared starts talking to him. And man, you can just tell Jared, their eyes just light up. This guy's, he cares about me. And then Nicole, he starts talking to Nicole. So we're there 45 minutes. We haven't talked about one financial thing in 45 minutes. You think that's an accident? You think he knows what he's doing? He looks over at me. He says, now, Rob, I said, Jonathan, I said, I know what you're doing. I said, and you're very good, and I'm impressed. And I said, you're trying to get to know me. I said, your training tells you that if you spend 5-10 minutes each with us, I said, I know what's going on. He looked at me, and he said, why, are you in sales? I said, no. I said, the Lord that I follow was the greatest salesman who ever lived. I said, if there's one thing that Jesus knew how to do is us talk to people. And I think Sunday you're going to learn why. Because on Sunday, Terry's going to preach that lesson. And what he's going to show you is that Jesus was the master at socialization. He knew how to talk to people. We have to train people, brethren. I don't know if you realize this or not, but one of the greatest deficits we face right now as a culture is the ability to socialize. You know why, don't you? Why? Because we walk around like this. Thank you. We struggle. And so sometimes just a conversation is challenging. So tonight, Tim, when we sat down to eat, and thank you for the dinner tonight. You and your wife and whoever else brought that food. But the first thing, I looked across the table, and Jared hit me when I did this because he knows what I'm doing. I looked across, I said, Tim, what do you do for a living? Do you know for 35, 40 minutes, that's all we talked about? And Jared kept hitting me because he knows exactly what I'm doing. Now, I'm interested, Tim. Don't get me wrong. I'm interested in what you do, but I can talk to anybody. It doesn't matter if you're a chemistry teacher. Where's Brother Allen at? It doesn't matter if you work in construction. It doesn't matter if you're building axles. It doesn't really matter to me. But I can talk to you, and it's just I care. I want to know what you do. Jesus was the master at this. He could walk up to educated people, scholarly people. I mean, these are people, the smartest people in the world, and he could converse with them. Then he could go down and he could talk to fishermen, tax collectors, carpenters. Then he could go down and talk to a woman who was ungodly, an outcast. And she felt as important as the scribe felt. How do we accomplish that? I want to suggest, brethren, that we've got to train our people. What I would like to see happen in every congregation is for elders to take a few members and say, listen, we want you to work with visitors, and here's your training. And I'm going to give you the training material. Then take a group of people and say, we would like you to work with people who move into the community. We're going to give you their name and address. By the way, do you know how many people move into this community? I'm talking about New Concord. How many families move here every month? Every 30 days, I know the number. I also know Zanesville, and I know, where am I staying again? Cambridge. I want to say Columbia, but Cambridge. I know the numbers. I'm going to give them to you. You've got to be trained. We want to train you on how to deal with benevolent requests and how to turn those into evangelistic studies. We want to look at training on what to do at the door. So in every aspect of this, there has to be training. So what I want to emphasize at this point is, brother, if this is going to work, you guys have to invest in training just like your jobs do. Everybody here understands, the military understands this. They call it what? Basic training. You're not done. As soon as you're done with basic training and they assign you to wherever it is that you fit, you're doing more training. And if you're going to be in a platoon of tanks or squadron of planes, they're going to put you in training. You're going to train until the day you leave. Teachers train every summer. Cole, you got training. You got training all year long. Sensitivity training, I'm sure. And you got to have training to make sure that you know the latest lingo. So let's go to the next one. Number 4, we got to promote what? We got to promote an atmosphere of evangelism in our churches where everything funnels through evangelism. So not only do we have to train, equip, right? These are our points, and make sure we have the equipment. We've got to promote now through everything we do in our church that evangelism permeates. One of the great soul winners of the past, he was one of the greats. I talked to one of his elders. He's passed away, but this elder still's living. And he said, Rob, he says, when Brother Jeff was here, he said he taught us something about evangelism that we've forgotten. He said, we don't do it anymore. I said, what is it? He said, it's called the funnel. I said, the funnel? Explain that to me. He said, evangelism is a funnel, and you stick it in the church. And if it doesn't fit through it, you don't do it. So in other words, everything you do focuses on the mission. So let me explain this in a military analogy. So there's a brother, his name's Lou. He lives around Little Rock. He's an elder. Lou, he's in the Air Force. Lou sits right behind the captain and the co-pilot of I think it's a C-130. I believe it's a C-130. And Lou's job is fuel. His job is weight and balance. Now, you may not know a lot about the C-130, except it's a gigantic aircraft. It's huge. The C-130 flies at a razor's edge. That balance must be maintained at all times, or it just falls out of the sky. So Lou sits behind the pilot and the co-pilot. He sits right behind him. He's got his own set of gauges, and he's constantly changing and monitoring constantly making alteration, constantly doing computations to make sure they're exactly where they need to do. And I looked at Lou, I said, Lou, well, is your job as important as the pilot? Surely not. How about the co-pilot? How about the navigator? How about the communicator? I said, Lou, you just sit in a chair and look at gauges. He said, Rob, my mission is the same as the pilot. He said, my mission is the same as the navigator. He said, Rob, we all have the same mission. I said, what's the mission, Lou? He said, the mission is to accomplish the mission. The mission is to win. The mission is, we all have the same objective. When we take off, whatever that objective is, it's the same objective. He says, for everybody in the airplane. I just have a different function. Brethren, if we don't begin to understand that everything we do in a local church should have the one mission, the funnel, everybody's got the same idea. We have one purpose for Vacation Bible School. What is it? Save souls. If your Vacation Bible School is not to save souls, there's something wrong. It's young souls, but it's to save souls. But there's older souls too. There are adults that are attending these VBSs, and that ought to be our goal. What's our goal of the graduation banquet? Yes, let's honor our children, but should there not be an angle where we're now going to have an access to people who are not Christians, grandpa, grandma, neighbor, teacher, friend who now comes because they want to honor someone? We have an opportunity. What about your trunk or treat? Do you ever do a trunk or treat, Terry, where you line up the cars and kids come and get the candy? I don't know. But what's the objective? To save souls. What about your backpack drive? You ever do a backpack drive? All right, let me tell you about the Carnes Church of Christ. It's called the funnel. You got to promote an atmosphere of evangelism in everything you do. So one of the elders at Carnes, Terry, called me and he said, "Hey Rob, you're coming for about a week for this big campaign." He said, "We think this is the perfect time to do our backpack drive." I said, "I do too." I said, "I love that idea." He said, "We're going to put one of our deacons in charge." I said, "Okay, Rob, when you get here, can you guys can you consult together, because we really want this to be an evangelistic event?" I said, "Sure." So I arrived, and so there's this deacon who's over the backpack drive, and he takes me to a room. He shows me all the supplies. I think they have a Walmart in their church building. I've never seen so many backpack supplies. I'm thinking outfit an entire school. I said, "Brother," I said, "this is amazing." He said, "Yeah, our members just donated." I said, "You got everything?" He said, "Rob, we think we can pass out 450 backpacks." He said, 2 hours. He said, 3 tops. I said, "Where do you get that from?" He said, "Rob, we've got cones out there, these orange cones. We're gonna wrap it off." He said, "We're gonna put them in a line." He said, "We're gonna have these carts." He got these carts, and he said, "We're just gonna drop them in as people come by. We're gonna give them information about the church, give them their backpack, Rob. We can really reach about 450 people." He said, "What do you think about it?" I said, "Brother, may I propose an alternative?" He said, "Well, what could be more efficient than 450 backpacks?" I said, "I want you to put your backpacks in the classrooms. I want you to require the people who want the backpack to walk into your church building. I want you to have every member in the foyer. I want you to have an open house. I want your members to walk the people through your church building, introduce them to the classroom, take them to the class where their child would actually attend, if they attended, introduce them to the teacher, let the teacher give them the backpack, get a picture with the kid. And then let's go ahead and take them into the fellowship hall. Let's have food ready. Let's eat with them, sit with them. In fact, when you walk them in, you don't lead them until they get back in the car. So we need all members, all hands on deck." He looked at me and he said, "That's going to take the whole church." I said, "Exactly." You know, they did it. Do you know on the very day we did it, Terry Townsend, Steve Higginbotham's doing Bible studies with people who are coming in. The very day. Now, we didn't pass out 450 backpacks, but we made contact. What did we do? We decided the backpack drives goal, the backpack drive's end result, the mission of the backpack drive was not backpacks. The mission of the backpack drive is to reach the lost. That's the mission. And sometimes we send cards and we think that's the mission. The mission isn't send cards. The mission isn't give out backpacks. The mission isn't Campbell's soup drive. The mission is not graduation. The mission is to save souls, brethren. Everything we do from this day forward is about saving souls. Period. Does this look familiar? Because every Church of Christ at least does one of these. We have our blessing boxes, our turkey giveaway, teacher supply giveaway, vouchers, benevolent buildings, winter coat drives, backpack drives. I mean, brethren, we are ready to give. You know what the problem is? At the end of the year, when the stockholders look at the company and they want to know one thing at the end, what's the one thing the stockholders want to know at the end of the year? Give me your bottom line. So what's your bottom line? Oh, we gave away 200 backpacks. What's your bottom line? We gave away 300 boxes of food. What's your bottom line? I'll show you what ours is. Her name's Kim Bullock. She called the church and she said, I just got this house-to-house, heart-to-heart, and it says y'all offer free community services. We said, yes, ma'am. She said, well, I could use some of those community services. And said, well, we'd be glad to offer it to you. We offer it every Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and we can't wait to see you. Oh, I don't know if I can be there Sunday morning. And I said, okay, we do it again at 10 o'clock. Well, I just don't. She said, well, I just don't know if I can get up that early. Not on a Sunday. I said, we do it again at 6 o'clock, and we are excited to meet you. Now, Sundays just aren't good days for me. Don't worry, because we have another opportunity Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, and we're looking forward to meet you. Well, now you need to know I don't drive. That's okay, because we'll pick you up. Well, if you're going to pick me up, maybe Sunday morning. And so we picked her up and brought her to the church, and we're sitting there and visiting with Miss Kim. And Miss Kim, I said, Miss Kim, now what is it you need? Well, a little bit of food. And my family kind of dropped me off. She said, don't have the best relationship with them. And so I said, well, we'll go to the Dollar General. We took her out to eat, got to know her. And in fact, not only that, but we took her home. I walked her groceries into her apartment, and I noticed all over the apartment complex on the corners is black mold. And I said, Kim, do you have health problems? She says, ever since I moved in here, I got this nasty cough. And I said, Kim, you got mold. I said, who owns these apartments? She says, HUD. I said, we're going to give HUD a call. We gave HUD a call. It's amazing how quickly they had a brand new facility waiting. Within 2 weeks, they had it open. And she called me. She said, Rob, they're ready. She said, Rob, I got a big problem. I said, what is it, Kim? She says, Rob, she says, I don't know how to move all this stuff. She says, Rob, I have a bad back and I can't do it. I said, we can move you, Kim. So sure enough, all the men of the church showed up with their trailers, and we moved her. And so now she's in her new place. Nicole and I are sitting in the couch, and we're just talking. I said, Kim, can I ask you? I've got 3 questions I always ask. 3 questions, Terry. Question number 1. Kim, what do you think about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? What do you think? She said. Oh, yeah, good church, Number 2, Kim, do you know a lot? Listen to how I word it. Do you know a lot about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? What is she going to say? No, not a lot. Number 3, Kim, would you like to know more about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? What is she going to say? No, I don't want to know any more about you. What is she going to say, gentlemen? And what am I going to say? I just so happen to have these little booklets. And we're going to do a Bible study. And what do you think happened when we finished a Bible study? Someone says, how do you baptize 17 people in 1 year? That's one of the ways we do it. That's not the only way. Our net is pretty big. We're going to produce contacts, lots of contacts, and we're going to use every contact creator we can find, and we're going to use it effectively, aggressively, actively, no passive. We're not going to use anything passively. We're going to be involved in every step. So we're going to create a net. The bigger my net is, the more fish I'm going to catch. I don't want a little net. I want a big net. I'm going to keep expanding my net. So I'm going to use everything at my disposal, including I'm going to make the community where I live aware of my presence. Every business understands the value of brand awareness. And so Lowe's is always going to be sending out something so people know there's a Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart. It doesn't matter. You're going to know they're there. Well, brethren, if we're going to have anyone in Zanesville come and be a part of this church, they need to know you're here. If anyone in New Concord is going to come, they got to know you're here. And I don't know if you realize this or not, but there are people out there going to Dollar General on a weekly basis who do not know you're here. They're not looking for you. So we know there are some things that we can do to advertise our presence. All right. What can we do? We send house to house, heart to heart, to mailboxes, not P.O. boxes, mailboxes. We send them to areas consistently, and we advertise the presence of our church. We make sure our churches know, the people know we're here. The phone number reaches a human being, no office numbers, unless you keep it manned 24/7. So the phone number reaches a human being every time it's called. We want to make sure there's an email address that works, a website that works. We want to make sure that our elders and preachers and their phone numbers are listed. We want to make sure the service times are correct. And this is very important. A lot of churches overlook this right here. This is where we say things like this: free transportation to the building. It's almost a guarantee someone's going to call you. 9 out of 10 churches don't say that. We're trying to fix that. Let's go to the next one. What's the next thing they should say? It should say free community services. Why not benevolence? Because they have no idea what benevolence means. You do, they don't. But I promise you they understand government language. When you say free community services, they're on it. They know exactly what that means. All right. Bible classes for all ages. For parents, that's important. They want to know you got Bible classes for their children. So there are things that you can advertise. What happens when you advertise the presence of your church in your community? I was this up at Streetsboro, Ohio. One of the preachers says, Rob, we've been using house to house for years. Last year we had 39 visitors because of house to house, heart to heart. 39 people came and said, we're here because we got this magazine and we're looking for a church. Now, I'm not suggesting that's going to be the end result of every congregation, but I know this: they would have never come to Jacksonville if it wasn't for house to house, heart to heart, and I'll tell you how I know it. Because I'm sitting in my pew, I look over my left shoulder, Alan Webster's in the pulpit, he's preaching, and I'm just a member. I just happen to be in town, and I see a lady, and I don't recognize her. And I looked at my wife and said, honey, do you know who that is? And she says, no. Alan finished the sermon. He walks down the aisle. I walked right behind him. Alan looked at me and said, Alan, who is that? He says, I don't know, Rob. She's visiting. I said, great. So I went, and we have like 4 entrances and exits to this auditorium. I went to the far entrance exit, and I sat behind her, right behind her. Closing prayer is said. She stands up and turns around. I just so happened to be there. I said, ma'am, my name is Rob, and I'm one of the members here. Are you visiting this morning? She said, yeah. I said, what's your name? She said, Ellen. I said, Ellen, are you by yourself? She said, well, I wasn't. My husband got sick. I had to take him home. But I said, well, Ellen, I'm so glad you chose to be here this morning. I said, did you enjoy our service? She said, I kind of did. This was a little different than what I'm used to. And I said, well, Ellen, what did you enjoy about our service? She said, well, I liked your preacher. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, he loves the Bible, and I love the Bible. I said, well, Alan does love the Bible. And I said, Ellen, I sure would like to meet your husband. She says, well, you know what? She says, I got a question for you. She says, do you guys have an evening service? Glad we weren't closed. And I said, absolutely. Brethren, hit pause just for a minute. We will not become a more spiritual body by eliminating service times. The trend in our churches to get rid of Sunday night services needs to come to a stop. We don't become more spiritual by worshiping less. We need our churches open as much as we can. I don't know where this has come from. I don't know if it's a COVID effect. We just got lazy. We enjoyed it, having that extra time. That we need to keep our doors open as much as we can. And because of that, she brought him back Sunday night. My wife and I sat with him, and we're talking after services. I said, Perry, we just so happen to have a little custom here at Jacksonville. I said, my wife and I always take visitors out to eat. I said, what is your favorite place to eat in Jacksonville? And he said, well, I like Afina's. I said, Afina's? I said, wow. I said, it's a pretty nice place there, Perry. And he said, well, I said, I'll tell you what. I said, my treat. I said, we'll take you to Afina's. You take us to Afina's? I said, yeah. I said, why not? He said, wow. He said, man, if I go to Afina's, I want to eat. And he said, my stomach's a little quick. He said, can I take a rain check till Tuesday night? I said, absolutely. So sure enough, Tuesday night, Perry and Ellen, my wife and I, we walk into Afina's. We sit around that little table. Brethren, I could care less about the lasagna. I have one mission. I sat around that table, and I'm probing, gentlemen. I'm probing. I looked at him. I said, hey, Perry, I said, what do you like to do? You like sports? Oh, man, yeah. I said, well, you like watch NFL football? He says, no. He said, disrespectful. I stopped watching them years ago. I said, me too, disrespectful. I said, Perry, you like basketball? Nah, too much money in that, bunch of thugs. I said, me too, thugs, just thugs. And so, it doesn't matter to me what he says, brethren. I don't really care what he says, and it doesn't have to be my opinion. I'm not there to express my opinion. He can say whatever he wants to say. When I'm with the Jews, I'll be what the Jews are. When I'm with the Greeks, I'll be what the Greeks are. I'm just trying to figure out, what does he enjoy? I want to have a conversation with Perry. And then I did the next one. Perry, do you like college ball? Yeah, now that's good sports, Rob. I said, okay. I said, what kind of college ball you like? He said, go Alabama. Oh, no. Go Alabama. Brethren, if I've got to like Alabama football to get a Bible study, so be it. I said, Perry, I said, man, you got a good coach. I said, oh, what's his name? Oh, Nick Saban? He said, man, Rob, we got a statue for him in front of the stadium. I said, I bet you do, I said, Perry, I'm so sorry. Oh, Rob, I said, it's been a terrible year, Perry. I know. Do you know what a terrible year is for Alabama? That's when you don't get in the championship game. And they didn't make it. And I was celebrating, and I'm sorry. And so in any case, I said, Perry, I said, you know what tomorrow is the championship game? And he says, yeah. I said, you going to watch it? Oh, of course I'm going to watch it. I said, Perry, did you realize that tomorrow at my house, we're having a football party? What was that? That was my wife kicking me. She did not know about this party. And she's letting me know this. And I said, yes, Perry, at our house, football party. And she's going to make those little, croissant rolls, and you roll up the mustard and the, little hot dog inside. And I said, we're going to have chips and dip. Perry, you got to come and watch the game. We'll watch it together. He looked at his wife. He said, can we go to the Whitakers to watch the game? So I was in 5th grade, and she said, sure, what can I bring? And Nicole says, oh, nothing, I got it all covered. And that means we're having a talk on the way home. And so on the way home, she looks at me and says, what am I making for this party? So in any case, so we get everything ready, right? So they come over that next night. They're sitting in my living room. We're watching the football game. I don't know, who was it? I don't know. It was a blowout, whatever it was. And halftime, I look at Perry. I said, Perry, can I ask you a question? He said, yeah. I said, why'd you come to Jacksonville Church of Christ? I said, well, honey, can I tell him? She says, sure. Rob, he said, we're Methodists. I said, okay. He said, Rob, the Methodist Church is undergoing some serious changes. Rob, I can't go along with them. I said, okay. He said, Rob, we're looking for a church that follows the Bible. I said, I like that. I said, but why Jacksonville? Because 21 years ago, you guys started sending us house to house, heart to heart. And every time I read that, it's about the Bible. Brethren, it took us 21 years to get them to the church building. Do you think it's worth it? I said, Perry, do you know a lot about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? He says, not really. I said, do you like us? He said, y'all are really nice. I said, would you like to know more about us? He said, I would. I said, I just so happen to have these little booklets. And guess what happens when you do Bible studies? You baptize them 9 out of 10 times. That's how we got 17 in 1 year. We're not done. On the back of the publication, you're going to advertise your events. You know, most congregations that use house to house, heart to heart, never advertise their events. You know what we have to put on there? Filler. We have to put some generic thing on there because you're not actively using it. But if you advertise your event, what event? Backpack drive. You advertise your backpack drive, they're coming. You advertise your trunk or treat, that is free advertisement. They're coming. There are things you can put on there that we know from doing this for 20 some years. We know they're coming. And so when you've got a meeting of some time and you're bringing in maybe a Glenn Colley to talk about the family, you put it on there and let everyone know it's coming. So inside we give away posters like that. We give away various religious articles. In fact, books. We even give books away like on marriage. And so I'm sitting at my house and I get a phone call from Deb Rice. She's the secretary. I said, hey, Deb. She said, Rob, are you at home? I said, we just got in. She said, I just got a phone call from Brenda Glaze. She wants the marriage material that we advertised in house to house, heart to heart. Now, Rob, in the past, we always mailed it. But the elders told me I wasn't allowed to mail it. They told me I had to call you. I said, yes, ma'am. And she says, well, what are you going to do with it? I said, I'm going to hand deliver it. She said, okay. She said, what's in your box? So I went to the church. I grabbed it out of my box, and Nicole and I, we drive down the road and never go to the door without a woman. You never go to the door alone, men. Never. There's many reasons for that. One is ethical, but the second is effectiveness. When they see your ugly face, they're not opening the door. You scare them. You see that? It scares them. It just does. They're not opening it, gentlemen. But if they see your little sweet wife, they'll open it. And by the way, take a child. Take a young person. They'll open it. And so sure enough, my wife, I always make sure I'm at the side. They don't even see me. They see her. She knows the rules. I knock. I stand aside. They go, hello? Ma'am, my name's Rob. This is my wife, Nicole. Oh, yes. I'm from house to house, heart to heart. Oh, yes. You asked for some marriage material. Oh, I did. I said, ma'am, have you just got married? I did. Your name Brenda? It is. I said, congratulations, Brenda. Well, thank you. How long have you been married? Oh, about a month. I said, Brenda, this must be an exciting time in your life. It is. I said, did you just move here? Yeah, about a month ago. Moved up from Oxford. I said, well, we're glad you're here, Brenda. Brenda, have you ever lived in Jacksonville before? Not really. Do you know anything about Jacksonville? Really? No. I said, well, we'll be glad to help you. We've lived here for about 4 years, and we'd be glad to help you if you need to know anything. Well, that really come in handy. I said, now this material is on marriage, and it should be very helpful to you. She said, well, wait. Sir, can I ask you a question? I said, of course. She said, sir, do you know anything about the Bible? I said, oh, just a little bit. She says, good, because my husband knows nothing about the Bible. Daniel, get up. Daniel's on the couch sleeping. All right, get up, Daniel. Daniel's trying to get up, and she goes and grabs him and pulls him up. Daniel's 6'5", she's 5'6". I mean, there's a disparity here. And so I'm doing this, and he's looking at me, and he doesn't know who I am. This is what she literally does. This. She looks at him and says, "He knows nothing about the Bible." And I said, I don't know what's going to happen here. And she says, Daniel, we three are teaching you about the Bible. I said, when would you like to start? And she said, what about Tuesday? I said, my wife will make chocolate chip cookies, and we are looking forward to it. We baptized and baptized and baptized and baptized and baptized and just kept baptizing. Because every time we baptized one, they had a friend, then they had a cousin, then they had a nephew, then they had a neighbor. That's Geneva. I talked about her last night. So what happens when you learn how to use a tool correctly? So here's what we know at House to House, Heart to Heart. We know that most churches that use this magazine have no idea how to use it. That's what we know. They just mail it out and hope something happens. I guarantee you don't treat your job that way. I guarantee you're more intentional about your job. I guarantee you know your job inside and out, and you're good at it. We can't be shooting from the hip and hope we hit something. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way in real life. It doesn't work that way in the church. We got a target. We got to aim. Brother, you'll never hit a target you don't aim at. If we don't, how many of you have brought home the big buck without aiming? You just randomly just shot and hope you hit something. Todd Clippard is a pretty big hunter down in Alabama. He's a gospel preacher, and he knew we were coming, so he called Jared and I. He said, hey, Rob, I know y'all love to hunt. I said, we do. He said, come a day early. I'll guarantee you see deer. I said, guarantee? He said, guaranteed. I said, man, Todd, I'm coming. So he's got this huge field, and I bet Jared and I were 600 yards apart on corners. And he said, he puts us in the stand about 3 o'clock. He said, Rob, I'm telling you, you will see deer. You'll see a lot of them. The only issue is this. What time are they coming? He said, that's the only issue. Will you have enough light? So I'm sitting there waiting, right? And the sun's going down, and I'm counting my 30 minutes, because when you hit that sun, you got 30 minutes, and it's 25 minutes, 27 minutes, and all of a sudden, there they come. Brethren, it was a herd of deer. My heart about stopped. I'm on the walkie with Jared. I said, Jared. He said, Dad, I see him. I can't get it to him, Dad. I said, I've got him. So I pull my rifle up. It's like, we're either at time or beyond time, but I've got him. And I pull it up there, and guess what I see? It's what I don't see. It's too dark. I can't get enough light in my scope to give me an accurate shot. So do I pull the trigger? I got brown blob. That's what I see brown blobs everywhere. Do you shoot? Absolutely not. You will never hit a target you don't aim at. I'm asking you, gentlemen, tonight, who's on your target list? If we don't develop a target list in our churches, we will not save anyone. I'm not talking about, well, I've got some neighbors. I want their name. Bill Smith, Tanya Smith. I want to know who they are. I want to know who is it that we've got to develop a target package. Here's another thing we've got to learn how to do. We've got to learn how to knock doors. I was never taught how to knock doors. And I was several years ago, about 4 years ago. It was actually 2020, January of 2020. And I talked to several friends, and I said, this year, I'm going to focus on how to properly knock doors. And they said, what do you mean? I said, I don't think our door knocking strategy is something that we need to continue. I think it's terrible. So when we go door knocking, typically, what are we trying to achieve? What is it that we're wanting to do? Invite them to a meeting, right? Y'all do this before. Try to get them to do a Bible study. Have y'all ever done this before? Invite them to church. Have you done that before? So our objective is, right? We want to get a Bible study. So I was talking to a preacher, and he said, Rob, is it possible that our objective in a door-knocking campaign is completely unfeasible? I said, I don't understand what you're saying, David. David's a good evangelist. And David looked at me, he says, Rob, he says, most of us are not qualified to throw the Hail Mary. He says, I'm not. I said, I'm not either. He said, when you go to the door of a stranger and you're expecting them to do a Bible study, that's a Hail Mary. He said, why don't, instead of throwing the Hail Mary, why don't we throw a 10-yard pass? He said, move the goalpost, Rob. I said, what do you mean? He said, what's the purpose of door knocking? I said, a Bible study. He said, no. He said, what's the purpose of a door knocking? I said, baptism. He said, no. He said, he said, Rob, he told me this. He said, what's the purpose of door knocking? I said, I don't know. Make contact, period. Just make a contact. He just took all the weight off my shoulders. He said, now, let's figure out how to do that. How do we make contact with people? So we have, through the years, developed 5 tools we use at the door. And brethren, listen to this very carefully. I hope you believe me, because I have the numbers. I will guarantee you get a 30% success rate if you'll do what we teach you. 30% of the time, you'll have a contact. For every 10 people you talk to at the door, you'll have 3 contacts. So if you go out and you hit 100 doors, how many contacts will you get? 30. Our data ranges anywhere from 25 to 36%. So I just picked 30 right there in the middle. I've had churches over and over again tell me that won't work here. You don't understand. This is a very difficult area. This isn't Tennessee. This isn't Alabama. So we went to Texas and we did it. I was just in Oklahoma. I did it there because they didn't believe. In fact, the preacher, he's a go-getter. He said, he's an elder. He said, Rob, I said, I tell you what, before I roll out of the parking lot, if you'll put a team of 20 people together, I'll stay and show you. They did. They actually put a team of 25 people together. We went out 31%. He came back to me and says, I never would have thought that was possible. They had a family visiting Sunday morning, and they have a Bible study going on because of it. Now, I can't explain all this to you right now. But what I'm trying to do is overview and show you, but we've got to learn how to do this correctly. Let's just not throw our people out there and say, well, invite them to the gospel meeting. You need to come because we've got Glenn Colley. They don't care that you got, they don't even know who he is. But if you'll use these tools, it'll work. That's called new movers. So I told you I was going to give you these numbers. How many new families do you have moving in to New Concord every month? 11. You have 11 families every month moving here. I'm not talking about Cambridge, Zanesville. I'm going to give you those numbers in a minute. I'm talking about New Concord. You have 11 families a month. Now let's talk about that just for a minute. Let's look at this quote. People are most likely to change churches when they move. I didn't know this until we studied it, all right? A couple of generations ago, if a couple or a family or individual moved from one city to another city, they usually stayed in that same denomination. Those days are over. It reflects a new culture, all right? It doesn't matter to me what denomination they were in the last town. Your average person today is looking to is willing to look at any church in their neighborhood. That is a powerful opportunity for evangelism. I don't care what church they were in the last town. I want them to visit the church of Christ because it gives us the best opportunity to sit down and to study the Word of God. There is not a contact that's more receptive to changing churches than a new mover. You know why? They don't have a church. They just left. They're new. Now, what if we did this? What if we at House to House sent them a New Movers edition? 2 weeks later, we sent them a personalized postcard from this church. And 2 weeks later, you showed up with that gift basket at the door. Brother, what's your name again? Yeah. Your wife? Chrissy. What if you and Chrissy showed up at the door and you said, hey, we're neighbors, and we know you guys just moved in, and we'd like to give you this gift basket and just welcome you to our community. What kind of reception are you going to get? Pretty good. Really good. What happens if you did this? What happens if you showed up the door and you said, are you Bob Smith? Did y'all just move in? And you have this piece of paper in your hand with their address and name on it. If someone showed up at your door and did that to you, what would you do? Yeah, where'd you get that information? Who are you? Why are you here? Because you immediately think they're going to scam you. So if we don't train our members what to do when they go to the door, what's going to happen? Is that going to diminish our results? Is it important that we put, I don't know, the elders say, we want the youth group. The youth group's a good group, younger people. You take younger people, then take a couple older guys, and you put them in a room and you train them on what to say, what not to say, and how to. Right now, my wife is in that fellowship hall, and do you know what she's doing? She is training your ladies how to go shopping in the name of the Lord. Brethren, it's God-authorized shopping, and they're more excited than they've been in a long time. She is giving them a church shopping list right now. So they can go shopping and they can develop a new mover's basket, and you can take that new mover's basket to a home. You think if you go up and show up at 11 families that you might just get one? Do you need 11? How many you need, Terry? What's the biblical answer? How many do you need? When Jesus says, many are called, how many do you need to be successful? Just a few. How many does the Army need? Just a few. How many does the Marines? Just a few. Are they going to get them all? Yes, sir. Brother Don? Yes, sir. We send the postcard. We send house to house. We give you the address. When you guys show up at the door, it's all on you. So there may be weeks here separating some of this, but it's a successive thing that we're doing. So we have seeded the lawn before you step on it. So we've already done that. And you can say, hey, my local church. Well, where do you go to church at? Well, you probably haven't seen it. We're just off the interstate. You know where the Dollar General? Oh, yeah, no, I've been to that Dollar General. Are y'all that church across the street from Dollar? I mean, if that doesn't have a landmark, I don't know what is. Everybody knows where the DG's at. I mean, you're right across from the DG. And so here it is, new movers. Now, brother, what am I doing? I am enlarging your net right now. I'm going to make it bigger. What if we developed a congregational, evangelistic, card-sending ministry? You guys already have the foundation for this. All we're going to do is blow it up. I mean, we're going to make it huge. So what if we took, I don't know, your neighbor who has cancer right now, and we didn't take volunteers. No, we assigned, and we made sure that person who has cancer gets 30 cards in 1 week, and they're going to get 5 cards a day, and we strategically mail them. And we do it next week again, and they get 30 more cards. Then we do it next week again. They get now 90 cards. And what happens after they get 90 cards, if we're intentional, and then we send, I don't know, Terry and his wife, or we send Alan and his wife, or we send, I don't know, somebody. We send Cole and maybe one of the other sisters here, and we send them to the door, and we say, hi. My name is Cole, and this is my friend Mary, and we're from the New Concord Church of Christ, and we've been mailing some cards to you. We just wanted to see how your treatments are going. Do you need anything? What kind of reception do you think you're going to get? What happens if you take compassion cards and you blow it up and you make it huge? What if you make it a mission? What if you get do you know men, you can write cards? Do you know that children can write cards? Do you know that widows can write cards? Do you know that widowers can write cards? And until Dr. Fauci tells us otherwise, no one gets COVID because they write cards. We can all write cards, gentlemen, and we can do it safely. That's a big tool right there. All we want to do is take what you're doing and just refine it. Just make it bigger. We want this to be an explosive work. Let's go to the next one. Oh, by the way, her name's Bettina. You see what she's holding? When we walked in her apartment, and Nicole and I sat down to visit, I looked around and I said, Bettina, where'd all these cards come from? Oh, that church you attend, Rob, they sent me those cards. I said, really? I never ask questions I don't know the answers to. Bettina, I said, what do you think about the Jacksonville church? Oh, I love it. Nice, sister. They're always sending me cards. I said, Bettina, do you know a lot about the Jacksonville? Oh, not a lot, Rob. I said, Bettina, would you like to know more about it? I sure would. I just so happened to have someone help me. These little booklets. And she's holding it right there. Of course, we baptized her. Yes, sir.
Remember I told you a little bit about our work with Christ members?
You did?
We have some brothers and men involved in writing.
And that's needed. In fact, I'm going to suggest that everyone needs to be involved in some way. Because this is a work that everybody can do. There isn't anybody here that's not capable of doing this. And so maybe you don't knock a door. That's okay. Maybe you don't have to lead a Bible study. That's all right. But brother, there isn't a human being out here that can't say, we're praying for you. I mean, anybody can do that. I mean, we're talking, again, 17 baptisms in 1 year. And I'll say this, there isn't a tool we use in our school more effectively than this. There's not one. There's not one that produces more baptisms than this one right here. All right, visitors. What do you do when a visitor walks in the door? Is there a plan? Is there a congregational plan on what you're to do? What's the purpose? What do you want from that visitor? Is there something key that you need from that visitor when they walk in the door? And who's going to get it? And what should you say? What should you not say? Well, let's just start with the basics. I'm going to end with this point, by the way. I'm about done. So I can't do all the training tonight. I'm just trying to whet your appetite. But let me share this with you. Pew Research Center did a poll. They do religious polls. They're pretty reputable. You probably heard of Pew. Okay. They asked this question. What's the number one thing a visitor wants when they walk in the door? Greeted, okay? Anybody else want to take a guess? Attention. They want somebody to give them attention, to recognition. Okay? Greeted. Okay, anybody else? Directions. They want direct. Where are things located? Okay, good. I'm still waiting for the answer. Friendliness. That's a good one. They want people to be friendly. None of these are wrong answers. They're all good. But there's one that just it towered over all of them. One answer that. So let me try to do it this way. When you visit a church, brother, you ever visited another church? When you walk in the door, what's the first thing you want to do? Okay, hear the truth. Feel welcomed. How about sit down? Sit down. Just sit down. I don't know about you, but when I walk into a strange place, what I want to do is kind of sit down and get out of the way. I do not want to be the center of attention. I just want to sit down. It was the number one answer by far. So when visitors walk in the door, what should we let them do? What should we help them do? Sit down. Why do we want them sitting down? Are they comfortable when Gabby Gossip is up there interrogating them about, I don't know where they live? Do you think that's comfortable for them? Do you think it's comfortable when Angry Fred is growling at them in the foyer? Do you think it's comfortable when you got 5 people surrounding them and they can't even, I went into one church, I did this in disguise. I didn't ever identify myself. And a preacher asked me to do this, so I walked in. It literally took me 17 minutes to sit down. And he said, I told you we were a friendly church. I said, brethren, you're so friendly that the visitors are being overwhelmed. I said, what you need to do is let them sit down. Now, once the visitor sits down, what's your objective? What do you want? What's the one thing that you want? Are they a contact, by the way? No, absolutely not. If you don't get that contact information, they're not a contact. So how do we normally get contact information from visitors? Let me demonstrate. There are some cards in the pew back in front. There you go. We're very traditional. There are some cards in the pew back in front of you. If you'll take those cards and fill them out, put them in the collection plate. We don't do collection plates. The boys will pick them up. Now churches are more sophisticated. So I walked into one church and said, oh, Rob, we don't do those anymore. They don't work. I said, well, I agree, they don't work. We do QR codes. Okay, I said, okay, QR codes. It doesn't work either. I know that. I'll explain this in a minute. And I said, okay. I said, brother, what's your percentage of people who do the QR code? He said, well, maybe 2 out of 10. Brethren, your objective when a visitor walks in the door is to get that contact information. And what if, just what if, I gave you a 99% success rate in getting that contact information? And right now, my wife is teaching your women how to go shopping in the name of the Lord. And they're going to make visitor bags. And we're going to train a group of members that are friendly members, smiley members. And their job is to identify visitors, to sit. Where do we sit? Not with them, that's uncomfortable. In front of them. So we're going to sit in front or behind. And as I'm sitting there, and this is my job. The elders have given this to me as my job. This is the thing I'm trained to do. Hey, are you visiting this morning? Hey, my name's Rob. This is my wife, Nicole. What's your name? Hey, and your wife? Nice to meet you guys. Where do y'all live? Not too far away. How long have y'all lived here in New Concord? And I'm just going to strike up conversation. I've got one mission. There's only one thing I want. What do I want? I want his contact information. He's probably not going to fill out the card. So what am I going to do? Hey, by the way, our church gives gifts to visitors. I'll be right back. My wife and I are going to come back. We're going to give this visitor bag. And it's got all sorts of neat little things in it. And as you're doing this, I'm going to say this. We're a pretty loving church. We're a card-sending church. And I tell you what, would it be okay if I got your address so we could send some cards to you? How many times is he going to give me that address if I do that? Every time. Is it possible that visitors come into our assembly and leave and we don't get that information? If you'll do that, you'll get it 99 times out of every 100. I got a lot more I'd like to say about visitors. A lot more. But I'll say this. Visitors are your highest yielding contact. Let me say that again. They're the highest yielding contact. Of all the contacts, I'm going to give you 21 of these. That's why I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to give you 21 contact creators. This is the highest yielding baptisms. You know why? Because they're here. You didn't have to chase them down. You didn't have to knock a door. They're here because they want to be here. So we should train our members what to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do. Brethren, tonight's lesson, I'll stop right here. Tonight's lesson was designed to be practical. I'm done preaching sermons. I've motivated as much as I can motivate. My job now, and just 1 second, Brother Don, my job right now is to give your elders and deacons and preachers and the men in this church an operational field manual. This is how it works. Give them the model. Let's follow the process. Let's train our people. And let's all have one mission. One mission. Yes, sir.
You know, Sunday, remember we talked about power and handwritten notes that you send.
Absolutely.
It's been proven
It is.
that it's the best way to very effective than sending a text or, oh, hey, you.
No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right. There's nothing like the power of a handwritten card. There's a Consumer Reports article, and I was reading it, and it was about the top-selling car salesman of the year. He's always the same guy. It's somewhere in Nebraska. It's some odd place, but he outsells everybody in the country. And so Consumer Reports showed up and said, hey, why are you the top seller? He says, follow me. So the camera crew follows him back. He's got this room sitting back there, and they open the door, and there's like 15 or 20 older ladies in this room. And you know what they were doing? Guess what they were doing? And they do it all day, every day. Guess what they do? All day, every day, they do one thing. They write cards, handwritten. And they said, that's all you do? He said, yeah, that's how I sell cars. Handwritten cards. It's amazing. Gentlemen, thank you for your attention tonight. My admonition is this. It's single-fold. We need some men to stand in the gap. We need some men to be men. We need men to be soldiers. Brethren, we need you to fight for souls harder than you have ever fought for your life. And if you do, this church will grow. God bless you and thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Sir, absolutely.
Take your time to end this with prayer, is that okay?
Yes, sir.
And
Absolutely.
then, now you're gonna meet.
The elders and you and whoever else the elders want to include in that's fine.